everyone, this is Noor from the Ideology podcast, and I'm so excited to announce that this is my first ever interview with one of my best friends, Hafsa. Woo! So today we're going to be discussing how to manage a non-regular diploma for the IBDP and how to manage taking all three sciences.
Yeah,
so
because I'm doing that.
Exactly. So Hafsa, give us a bit of an introduction about yourself.
Okay, so hi, my name is Hafsa. I'm one of Noor's friends, as she stated. And so I did IB MYP for 4 years, so MYP 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then I did, and now I'm doing IBDP. And like my current subjects, they're Bio HL, Chem HL, English A HL, and then Math AI SL, Physics SL, and French Ab Initio.
So Hafsa, you're taking all three sciences.
Yes.
Now, my question for you is, why do you hate yourself?
I mean, I want to study medicine, and I want to do my specialization in neurosurgery because I think the brain is really funky. It's so weird. Like why am I having a headache right now? Why?
Why do I procrastinate?
Why do I procrastinate so much? Why does your brain send out certain signals and stuff to your body when?
How does the brain?
How does the brain exactly? So I want to do something in that, but I want to specifically I want to operate on the brain because I think surgery is something that's really interesting, and I've been very interested in the brain for a long time now. So I want to specialize in neurosurgery, but in order to do that, I need to be a doctor. In order to be a doctor, I need to go to med school. And in order to get into med school, you need to take bio and chem. That's mandatory. And as for physics, so in Pakistan, you need to have physics. You need to have physics if you want to go into medicine. And so I need physics to kind of be able to apply to med school in Pakistan. But I also wanted to keep the option of engineering open because if medicine doesn't really work out, my backup plan is to double major in chemistry and neuroscience.
Now, I have a question for you. Why neuroscience?
Again, the brain is so weird, bro. The brain is so weird, and I really do want to study it in depth because you don't really do that in the IB. You just kind of go over it, especially with the new syllabus, because it's more content, but it's less depth. So, if you were taking into account the old syllabus, there was still some sort of depth that was going into studying. Right now, we're doing the cardiovascular system in bio right now, and you're going into a lot of depth. Considerably, as compared to MYP. But if you compare it to the old syllabus, it's not as much as you would kind of expect. So yeah, there isn't a lot that you cover. Considerably, there isn't a lot that you cover in DP bio. So then DP bio HL even. So that's why as well.
Now you've been taking these three sciences for about 6 months now, easily, right? So that's when DP1 for us started. I have a question for you. You did switch around your subjects a bit because you wanted to first go into engineering, but then you were like, maybe this isn't really the route for me, and I'm just going to go to medicine. Now, how much on a scale of 1 to 10 do you regret taking all three sciences at the same time?
Okay, so there isn't really regret. There's just I wouldn't say there's the wanting to not take all three sciences because I do love my subject choices to a certain degree. It's not a full circle. It's not 360 degrees. It's 359.9 degrees. That's how much I kind of.
So 90% you're into it.
35.9. 359.9.
Okay, she has a very specific number.
Okay, so the 0.1 degrees. I wouldn't say it's regret, but it's what if I just didn't take all these? What because.
What could have been?
What could have it been?
Let's break down every STEM subject based on objectively, or for your opinion, subjectively, how difficult that subject is. So let's continue with physics. You take physics at a standard level, right? But
it's hard. It's hard. The thing is that Unit 1, Unit A, Theme A, whatever you want to call it, kinematics, it is arguably the worst thing to study ever, even at SL. Because we only did Unit A for the entire first term, and it kind of bled out into the second term. In the very, very beginning, the first 2 weeks, we were just covering up concepts that we weren't able to finish up. And I ended up getting a 3 in physics, SL, okay, because the entire paper was just paper 1 and paper 1 and paper 2. We didn't have paper 1B at that point. So yeah, on a difficulty level, it depends, but I feel for me, because again, HL, it's 6.5 to 7, depending on the day or depending on the concept. So
would you say it's harder than physics?
To a certain degree, relatively, because physics it's the first unit was just so difficult. But the rest of the units are considerably a lot easier, but the first unit is connected with every single unit,
Oh, it's the heart of the course.
It's the heart of the course, exactly, because everything is kinematics, everything is just motion and stuff, because that's the entire,
I have a
that's
question
what physics
for you.
is.
What is the difference between HL chemistry and SL chemistry?
Dude, HL chemistry, people are gonna hate me with this, but HL chemistry, there isn't a lot of content that is
different.
It's just an extension of Chem SL. For Chem SL, because again, there's a lot of content to cover in the first place, and it's difficult. Chem SL, I would say it's harder. Because Chem HL, you touch upon the topic, because again, the syllabus change, but you don't exactly reach out and then you grab it by its horns and then you kind of drag it towards you. It's just connections you have to make with Chem SL, with your concepts, and there's obviously new content as well. You can't exactly take an SL, you can't take an HL subject and not expect new content.
Of course.
Yeah, of course. So I feel it's easy, but it's also
very tedious.
It's very tedious. You have to cover extra content. And then for bio, it's the exact opposite for as compared to chemistry and physics, because it's 110% conceptual. There aren't exactly new formulas to memorize. There aren't
content heavy,
and it's so content heavy. It's so content heavy. I was looking at the bio guide for 2025, and we've already covered half of the content. But if you look at it from a syllabus perspective, we've covered half of the content. We're done with theme B. But we've barely covered anything. Like I would like because I have like the textbook divided into like each chapter on my G drive.
Right.
We've only covered 7 chapters and they're like 15. They're like 15, 16. So like yeah, we've reached the halfway point. But again,
Those ones are then came chunkier.
Yeah, there's so much content left to cover. And it's so much because again, like even like comparing bio HL to chem HL, it's not fair because chemistry HL is just an extension of like chem SL, but bio HL, it's like obviously it's an extension, but there are like 6 different concepts you cover. Like
it's more complex.
It's more complex. It's so much content, and genuinely like it's hard. Like it's hard. Like because there aren't exactly any formulas you can apply. It's just memorization. And again, the gap between MYP and DP is so big that we don't exactly do memorization in MYP because it's more like common sense. Like it's very much common sense in MYP.
It's more about like, okay, so this is the question, this is the concept you've understood, but you have to kind of think of which concept am I going to apply here.
Yeah.
But what's the difference in DP though?
In DP, it's like you'll be asked to draw diagrams and you'll be asked to like we had a question that was like literally like one single point in like for our midterm, it was like one single point in the textbook that was like buried between like different sort of things. It was like the difference between trans fat and cis fat. Like it was something like that. I don't remember. It was like phospholipids, which I don't remember what the question was. And it was like because it was such like a niche question from like a niche concept, you don't remember these kind of things when you're like in the exam hall giving the exam. And it's because I suffer a lot from exam anxiety. We're like halfway done through Team B, and it's genuinely been easy. It's been fun. Physics has been fun, and I never would have thought that I would say this about a subject that I genuinely hate, that I passionately hate. But it's been okay.
Do you think anyone can take physics?
No.
Who do you think can take physics?
Someone who so I would say someone who has to, like out of majburi. I don't know what
compulsion.
Yeah, like out of like you just have to take it. And people who like the link between math and science, not in like because physics. Essentially, it stems from math, like completely. You can't do physics without math. You can't do math, and like you can do math without physics, but you can't do physics without math at all. So those 2 people and people who genuinely like physics or are planning on doing something in physics, those 3 people should. And like obviously, and like for the first person, like people who have to take it, if you are planning on going into engineering or planning on doing
STEM,
like comp sci or just planning on doing medicine in Pakistan, then you kind of have to, regardless of whether or not you like it. So I feel like on a scale of 1 to 10 of how hard it is. I feel like it depends on your mindset because now I'm kind of trying to gaslight myself essentially. Like it's not that hard. You're just gonna go. It's just formulas you have to know when to apply, and I feel like it's been working for me. So on a scale of 1 to 10, I think it's like a 7 on like a difficulty scale for chemistry. So I take chemistry HL, and that is a tough decision to make because chem HL.
Yeah, I've heard it's really hard.
Chem HL is quite difficult because it's very content heavy and it's very formula heavy. Not like formula, but like it's like quite conceptual, but it's also quite. Like there's just a lot of content that you have to cover. There's like you have like your labs and then you have your IAs and then you have your content and then you have quizzes every 2 weeks and it's a lot of content to say the least. Especially because I'm M25 and that's when I'm going to be giving my exams and the syllabus has changed and the specimen papers don't say much because it's like one question from each topic, which isn't a lot to like cover your bases on. It doesn't really help you, and so we have slowed down a lot just because of the syllabus change. But yeah, no, genuinely though, it's quite a difficult subject. If you're not interested in it or if you won't find interest in it, you're gonna find it harder. Because I do like chemistry a lot as a subject and as
she's so dedicated to chemistry, she's doing her extended essay in it. Hafsa, everyone.
Oh my goodness, that is definitely like that's a choice you have to make.
That's a choice.
That's a choice, and it's quite it's a difficult choice to make. I'll touch upon my extended essay after I talk about this. But yeah, it's like if you won't put in the time and effort for chemistry, you're not gonna score well. Like that's like a rule basically.
Is it more tougher than physics SL?
It depends on the question. Like depends on like the person. Because I like chemistry because I put in the dedication to it. Because again, HL and also my EE, it's not as hard if you take it like concept by concept. But when you're studying, like when you're in exam-based study, and you know it's like 3 different concepts in one question, that's when it gets tough. That's when you have to kind of actually think about, oh, did I do this properly or did I
kind of fumble
it, or did I fumble in it, like that happened to me a lot during your English HL instead. So
how on average, how long should you sit with the idea of you switching subject either to SL from HL or dropping it for another subject?
I think 2 to 3 weeks, like properly evaluate what your choices are. And if you're in the position to sit in the subject that you want to take up on, if you drop like your first subject, sit in the classes for a bit
just to see if it's your cup of tea.
Yeah, and like see if you have any prior knowledge based upon it, because if you're switching like in the beginning of the first semester, that's kind of like you can catch up really quickly. But if you're switching like during the first semester or during second semester or like halfway through the second semester or during DP2,
they don't let you do it in DP2.
They don't let you, but like if you can, if you really force it, then they will.
Yeah.
I think it's just our school, but like then you really need to kind of see, because first off you're already done with like the first year of your entire course, so
or the first term,
or like a good chunk of your course, like at least a quarter to like half of the course.
Exactly.
So catching up with all of that missed syllabus is gonna sit with the idea of switching a subject for a couple of weeks and being really confident about your decision. Because once you switch it, there's no going back to re-switching to your initial subject. Like obviously you can, but then it causes a lot of disruption in your syllabus.
Exactly.
Like how you're gonna be taking it in, like retaining it. So
that's what I would suggest. Like sit through a couple of the classes. Like for example, I dropped global politics for economics because global politics wasn't really interesting to me, and I didn't even need it for my career choices. But I needed so I want to do business or law. But as of yet, I'm sticking with business, and for that, I do need economics, even though it's not necessary. So I switched it, and I don't really regret my choice. I'm really happy about that. And I also switched from Urdu Language and Literature HL to French Ab Initio, and I don't regret it because
Urdu is hard.
Urdu is so hard.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, Hafsa, now I have a question for you, which I think a lot of people are wondering. So, per subject, how do you study? How do you think is most effective of studying chemistry or physics or bio?
So again, it depends per subject because each subject has different components. So math is very calculation based. Like you have to do practice problems. There's no other way of studying math. For physics, you need to memorize. Like what our teacher said, that you need to memorize the definitions, and from the definitions, you kind of remember the formulas, the ones that aren't given in the formula booklet. Even the ones that are, so you know when to apply them. And when you know the definitions, you know the formula. When you know the formula, you kind of know when to apply it. For chemistry, it's very different. For bio, it's very different. For French, it's very different. Because again, each subject has its own component. So for math, what I usually do is that our math teacher, he sends us
take a lot of time
in class or as homework or whatever test or in-class quiz we have. He usually uploads it on ManageBack. And so I try to do those, again, if I have the time to. If I don't have the time to do that, then I usually use Revision Village or Revision Dojo. Both are really great sources for practice problems. And I also ask our teacher a lot to send me extra worksheets, and that's kind of how I try to do 2 to 3 practice worksheets for math at least every 2ish weeks. Like in the span of 2 weeks, I like to do those many. And I also have this PDF file. I don't remember what website it is, but I remember the URL. The URL was static.squarespace. It's not something like that. And it has subject guides per subject. Like if you again, I'm M25, so it has M25 chemistry HL, M25 bio HL, M25 physics, like stuff like that. So I usually use that to kind of revise a concept. So if, for example, you're doing fractions, or if you're doing functions or something like that, not fractions, not we did that in the 3rd grade. Like logs or something like that. Then if I don't really remember what the concept was, then I like to just go through that file and kind of get a refresher on what exactly we did. Because I remember we did 3D geometry as soon as we got back from the break, the winter break. For some reason, I just could not find my notes of that in my notebooks, at all. I could not find them at all. And so I didn't make new notes, but what I did is that I went through that file and I was like, okay, so this is what you do. It was just a bit of a refresher for.
And it's good because you also have the lecture right there.
Exactly.
In case you forget what your teacher said, then the explanation's all just right there with examples.
Exactly. And then I then use Revision Village, Revision Dojo, and the worksheets our teacher sends us for practice. I remember for the midterm, I did over 50 or 60 questions just for practice for one specific unit or one specific chapter. We were doing functions in the beginning, right?
Yeah.
Functions. So I did 50 or 60 questions just for functions, and then
dedication 50 to 60 for one topic.
Yeah, again, because you don't really know what type of question comes in the exam.
That's true.
And even last year, our teacher was you need to get comfortable with uncomfortable situations or unfamiliar situations.
Topics.
Yeah. Or unfamiliar questions. So that's how I practice a lot, and because I practice so much, I managed to get a 7. I thought I was going to fail the exam. I genuinely thought I was going to fail the exam, but I ended up getting 7. In terms of the content is easy, but it's just a lot for bio. So
it's burdening level of stacking concepts on top of each other.
Yeah.
There's so much.
In terms of the content is easy. So I would give the content a 5 out of 10.
Difficulty-wise?
Yeah, difficulty-wise. But in terms of actually retaining all that, all that stuff. The bio textbooks is over 1,500 pages, I think.
Oh my god.
I know. No, not.
Oh yeah, I saw it. It was so thick.
It's so thick. I think this one that we use is 1,022.50. I don't know, but it's a lot of pages. I split the textbook because of that. Retaining the content is a lot harder. It's 9 out of 10 easily. But if you handle it well and you actually continuously practice it, it gets easier as time goes on. So, but I'm probably gonna contradict myself during the finals. So yeah.
I have a question for you about subject selection. So I have a couple questions per subject, but overall with subject selection, you enter DP, you go into some classes, you see there's a huge gap in the same subject you took at MYP versus DP. I don't take bio in DP, but when I did take it at MYP, I could tell how content heavy it was even then. But now it's times 5, obviously.
Yeah.
But let's say a lot of people in our class, they've dropped physics for economics, for example.
Yeah.
When do you think is the right time to take action to be more safe with your subject selection if you want to drop something or switch something?
It depends on the subject, but it also depends on the teacher. I remember because initially I was taking math AAHL for a bit because that's what I was, because it's stats heavy and it's you have an upper hand in medicine, in med school if you cover stats really well. So I was that was my justification.
Going into it,
that was my justification for going into math AAHL, which is the hardest math there is. If you don't count extended math AAHL is very, very, very difficult. Our school didn't even offer it because of how hard it is. And what our teacher did is that he started the course with complex numbers, which is tough. And his reasoning for that is it sets like the tone for like the rest of the course, like it shows that the course is gonna be difficult, and like from the starting point, it like you start with difficulty, and like that's kind of like the mind. And so like that's for math. So I can't really comment on how to practice for math HL, because when I was doing math HL, I was like, we only did one topic, and we didn't really have any like test or quiz. To the point, like when I was doing it, like by the time I dropped math HL, we didn't really have any test or quiz, so I can't really comment on how to practice for math HL, but I would guess you would do the same thing, just more practice. For
math, practice is the best way to go, especially with like word problems.
Yeah.
Just to understand the question, it's really good to, you know, read a lot of word problems and understand what the question is actually asking you. Because sometimes, for example, for like binomials and stuff like that, the question won't directly ask you if it's a binomial question. So you kind of have to read through it to understand what they're even asking. So, like Hafsa said, Revision Dojo and Revision Village are the best way to go.
Also, like, maybe it's just me, maybe it's something that only I kind of see working, but when we're in class or when I'm at home practicing, I like to write down the question once, and I like to write down all the parts so I know what, so like I also kind of internalize what the question is asking me.
Working for you.
Yeah, but like that's what I also do for physics, which, next point, how do I study for physics? Physics, okay, so I genuinely find physics to be difficult. Like, there's, like, it's a difficult subject.
Even in NYP, it's quite complex with how technical it is too, because, like, we live in Pakistan, and there's a thing in Pakistan where you have to have at least 8 subjects.
Yeah.
It's like a Pakistan equivalency thing for college, so we had to take up 2 sciences naturally.
Yeah.
And the question just about this. So physics is such a lengthy course, even for SL in DP.
Yeah.
How do you manage to do revision at home and actually be productive with it? That's a good question.
That's a good question. What I like about our current teacher is that we go about the syllabus how the syllabus is designed. So most of what our teachers do is that they go about the syllabus like how the IB recommends teaching it. So like theme A, theme B, theme C, theme D, whatever. But like we just kind of go like, okay, so theme A is done, now theme B. We don't really go into what the course, like what that kind of theme requires us to kind of know, I guess you could say. It's like for physics, what we do is that we divide the concepts into like theme B1, theme B2, theme BC, theme B3, sorry.
Like subtopics.
Yeah, subtopics. And that's how we organize everything on our ManageBack and our Google Drive as well. And so that's good. And so if I know I'm struggling with a certain concept, I know that it's from this specific theme or like subunit, and so I can just cover the entire subunit as a whole because everything is so interconnected. So if I don't understand one concept, it's highly likely that I won't understand anything else. So at least maybe that's just for me, but like that's how I kind of see it. And so that's how I kind of approach the topic that I'm struggling with. So for example, for theme A, kinematics, I struggle a lot with projectile motion. Like I cannot if you put a projectile motion question in front of me, I will cry because how much I resent kinematics. I hate kinematics. It's the worst unit. It's the worst physics thing to ever be. Like Newton could have sat like 5 inches away from the apple for all I care.
I agree.
Okay, I hate physics. I hate physics just because of that. Okay, so what I usually do is that for theme A specifically, I go back to the topic a lot. So like we're currently in theme B, so like that's mostly like it's thermophysics, so that's really what our focus is on now. All of the practice questions we do, it's only for that. And so how I kind of approach, okay, so I'm gonna first talk about how I approach, like how like I do work for that. Practice questions, revision village and revision dojo, and just a lot of practice questions, and you need to have the data booklet in front of you as well as the subject guide. I cannot emphasize this on enough because the subject guide tells you exactly what you need to know for the course, and the data booklet gives you an idea as to what there is in the, like what you're going to be provided in an actual exam setting and what you kind of need to know and how you're going to approach the concept. So I like that. And for theme A, because I go back to it a lot, I just make new notes every single time. Like whenever I can, like I watch Khan Academy videos and I watch like videos explaining a concept, and I watch multiple of them so I can get like an overall like a holistic view as to how to kind of approach the question. For projectile motion, like if you see my notebooks, it's like 25%. Like every 3 or 4 like lessons, like after you'll see me kind of revising projectile motion and like doing practice questions. So yeah, practice questions is the only way to go for when you're doing
physics and math. So how about chemistry?
Chemistry is a bit of because it's more conceptual, but it's also very like I don't know how to describe chemistry because it's very conceptual. You need to know the concept, but there's like a lot of formulas that you have to apply. There's a lot of stuff that you kind of just need to know to do stuff. So I don't really know how I study for chemistry. I just study for it. You have to make really good notes. You need to make notes of every single thing the teacher is telling you because they know more than you do. They know that what they're saying is important, okay? There's no going like, oh, that doesn't really sound like important to me. I'm not going to write in my notes. You'll forget by the time the lesson ends. No, you'll forget like 5 minutes later what the teacher was saying, and then you're going to ask your friend, oh, like, what did she say? Or like, oh, what was the specific point? You're going to forget. So you need to copy whatever, like, you need to write down whatever the teacher's saying. Copy whatever whatever they're writing on the board because, again, it is important. Chemistry, you need to know the content in order to be able to practice the content or to be able to actually kind of approach the subject. So again, you need to note down everything. You need to have good notes. You need to have organized notes. What we usually do in class is that we make mind maps or like kind of like lit charts basically of like the specific chapter, like the specific unit. So like for moles and stoichiometry, you're gonna want like a document that has all of like the major keynotes or like the key points, and then all the formulas you need to know, and kind of like little examples of the practice questions. And then once you kind of have that down, then you know how to approach the concept. So that's what I'm gonna recommend. And also read the textbooks. Read summaries online, because there's a lot of content you need to remember for chemistry. So that is that.
I love that so much. Now let's come with the most tedious, I would say, content-wise, the one only bio.
Oh my goodness, bio. Bio, there's, again, I mentioned this before, like a little bit ago. Bio is so much content, and it's all conceptual.
And
there's
you're
no
HL.
formula, and I'm HL. There's no formulas you need to remember. There's no like certain kind of rules you need to remember. It's all just formulas, and not formulas. It's all just concepts.
And it's easy to forget.
It's so easy to forget because there's so much content, especially for HL. And 1 second. Because the thing with bio is that it's all conceptual, so it's a lot of stuff you need to memorize. Like, if you compare it with MYP, there's no comparison, because again, the gap between MYP and DP is so big.
For like every subject.
For every subject.
Even the humanities, you'd be surprised.
Yeah, no, but like, especially for bio.
Especially
for
for
bio,
sure.
like, for example, like our current unit is like the cardiovascular system. We did 3 things for that last year. It was the chambers of the heart, you might remember this.
Yeah.
The vessels, and then kind of
Arteries
like,
and stuff like
yeah,
that.
and then just like a basic overview of the blood, of like the blood composition. Like right now, we're doing
You're
like,
dissecting every
we
detail.
are
of
like
it.
going into the heart. We become one with the heart. I cannot describe it any other way. But there's like so much detail, and if you're not making notes, if you're not doing anything, like if you're just gonna like obviously people,
Diagrams and labels are so important.
so important. Sometimes like obviously it depends on like the type of person you are. Like our friend, you know, she's a really good listener. She's not a good note taker. But she prefers listening, and so that's kind of her way of approaching it. And when she goes home, then she kind of goes over the concept again. But for me, I need to make notes. Otherwise, I'm not gonna remember. Like especially like the points that our teacher also makes. Like during the lecture, like you need to write those down, because those are also very important.
Because they are in your textbook, but for example, teachers who are IB certified and are IB, you know, they've been teaching IB for so long. They know which examples and which terminologies really work well in the exams. So you also have to keep an ear out for those things.
Yeah. And because it's all conceptual, there aren't really any formulas you need to know. What I like to do is that I've divided like the main textbook that we use per chapter or per theme. And so what I do is that like when the lecture ends, I like to keep the textbook open in front of me so that I can also read side by side like what our teacher is explaining. And then I also use Bio Ninja. Bio Ninja is like your Lord and Savior in IB Bio, like an IBDP Bio. Also, it's quite helpful in IB NYP, but it's more in depth because it's designed for the DP syllabus. It will save your grades if you're not using
Your textbooks?
No, if you're not using Bio Ninja, you might like it's the difference between getting a 5 and getting a 7. Honestly, I would say that, because it explains the concepts really well, and it's for IB students.
So it explains it in the way you're going to explain it in the exam. I have one last question for you, which I think is something most people wonder.
Yes.
How do you manage a social life with 3 IBDP sciences?
I don't have a social life. That's
What do you mean we're friends?
You see, okay, so I'm gonna give you a bit of like an idea as to what my schedule is like.
Yes,
so
please.
These days it's Ramadan, so like my
A
schedule is a
day
bit
in
messed up.
Hafsa's life.
So like the usual day, if you don't really think of Ramadan, I wake up at around 6:30 because that's when my classes, like my classes usually start at 8. On Tuesdays and Wednesdays they start at 10:30, so I don't really get to school until 10, so my day starts a little late because of that. But I get to school at around 8 or 10, whatever, depends on like, you know, my schedule. And then I stay in school until my classes end, and then I go home, and usually my classes end at around 3, sometimes end at 4, like, you know, just keeping that kind of, like, that basic outline in mind. I get home, I chill for like an hour and a half, I have lunch, and, you know, I kind of, like, you know, wind down, and then after like an hour and a half, I, like, just start studying. I use Notion, so I have, like, a weekly to do list of stuff that I need to get done, and that is helpful because it gives me an idea as to what everything I have to get done in this week. Like, I need to know, like, I know that like this is important stuff.
Yeah,
I also
it
have
helps
like,
you keep organized.
I have like a daily to do list as well, but I don't use that often because it's just tedious to update every single day. So I just use a weekly one. And I have like every single thing I need to get done, whether it's an assignment, whether it's like a essay draft that I need to get done, whether it's something for my personal statements, because we're working with college counselors, like external college counselors, whether it be like a test that I need to prepare for. I like write every single thing down for that, and then I just kind of start with stuff that I need to get done immediately. So for example, today when I go home, I have a couple of things I need to finish. Like I have a physics formula that I need to study for. I have a personal statement draft due tomorrow night. I have, what else do I have? I have a lab report due for chemistry. I have stuff that I need to get done. So I organize my day in terms of that. So for example, for me right now, the most important thing to get done is my lab report because that's due tomorrow. So when I go home, I'm gonna get that done finished. I'm gonna get that finished first,
yeah.
and then I'm gonna start working on my personal statement. I already have the outline for that, so just the writing part. So
That reminds me to make edits online. I'm like done with everything.
I need to submit mine like ASAP. My editor's getting very pissed at me because you need to submit your stuff. And then like I have like 3 or 4 tests coming up, and then I'll just kind of like divide the rest of the time I have for like each subject. So I have like a math test on Tuesday, I have a bio test on Monday, I have a physics formative on Friday, and now I also have a chemistry test on Friday. So I have like 4 different things that I need to get done. And whatever is more important, I try to get that done as quickly as possible, but I try to like dedicate time to it as well. And then because I like spend so much time on my subjects, I end up going to bed around 2ish, 2:30ish. I'm also I have severe insomnia as well, so like, that's also a thing.
Self-diagnose.
self-diagnosed. But like if I literally cannot fall asleep before 3 a.m., I'm pretty sure that's like insomnia.
Yeah,
I could be
kind of.
wrong, but like you know.
So basically, if you're planning on becoming a doctor or whatever field you're going into and you want to take 3 IBDP sciences, just know 2 years of would you say it's somewhat misery?
Somewhat, because like even our English teacher, she's like, you need to like don't really experiment in the IBDP. Put
Be
effort,
short
like,
shot,
yeah, like be really focused, because these 2 years, even though it's like very cringe to say this, very cliche to say this, these 2 years do determine a bunch of stuff in your life. If you don't do well in your diploma program, you might not get into a good university, and if you don't get into a university, your job prospects are very limited. So you need to really, really keep those things in mind. Obviously, it's like a bit of a domino effect. Obviously, it's a bit of a domino effect. It's very much like it's very far fetched. Obviously, sometimes it doesn't happen like that. Some people don't really do that well in the IBDP, but they still get into a good university.
It's not
and
like
they really
set in
excel there.
stone.
Yeah, obviously it's not set in stone, but like this is generally how.
But you do have to pull up your sleeves.
Yeah,
for
you
sure.
yeah. So you really need to properly dedicate yourself to these 2 years. Obviously, like you're gonna get annoyed with the thing. I am already very annoyed with that with the DP.
Like 6 months in.
6 months in, and I'm done with it. But you know, it's very rewarding because it puts you on like a higher. I wouldn't say like on a higher tier, but like it definitely puts you above like A level students, because obviously you take like 6 subjects mandated, but and like A level students they only need to take 3 like minimum, which.
I wish I could
take like make notes, okay?
Yes, I do make notes, make some changes.
Yeah, but like 6 subjects mandated, but you also have your TOK, you have your CAS, you have your extended essay, and these are like genuinely the things that make you a well-rounded student. Like you do research and stuff, which helps you so much in college, but you also have your community service stuff from CAS. Something so that you don't really necessarily need to go out of your way to do community service work while you're still like in school, because you know you have to do it for school. And TOK gives like it shows that you are like a really good thinker,
critical thinker.
A critical thinker. And like again, this sounds so cringe and cliche, but like honestly, the IB like this is why like a lot of students prefer IB, because it puts you like I would say like it makes you a much more well-rounded student. So yeah. And like a very ideal IB diploma student, what they do is that they take 1 subject from each subject group. Obviously, you can like alter it to make it more suitable for you.
Yeah.
Like again, like there's literally called a non-regular diploma for students who are taking all 3 sciences, if they want to go to STEM specifically. And then there's students who take one subject from 1 subject group, so
from
it makes them
arts
more,
or humanities.
yeah, so it makes them more well-rounded. So yeah.
I would say pick your subjects based on what your passion is.
Yeah.
Because only if you're actually interested in your subject would you perform well.
Yeah. Also your passion, but like your university requirements. Don't just choose subjects because they're easier. Because at the end of the day, if your university are like, why don't you take this subject, or why don't you take math HL, then you're kind of in a bit of a pickle.
Yeah.
So, but like I recommend for NYP students, because I personally didn't do this, but I recommend to NYP students, and I was actually on the IBO subreddit last night, and a bunch of NYP students were asking for advice, and I gave them some advice. Make university lists, or kind of make like a prospective university list of where you're going to be applying for sure. And then based on that, or like not even universities, just like countries, because countries also have like
particular
like requirements.
Yeah.
And based on that, choose your subjects. So because I knew that I was going to be applying to Pakistan, that's why I took physics. If it wasn't like a requirement,
you would drop it.
Then I probably would be taking econ or BM right now.
Yeah.
They're much easier subjects. But then again, choose your subjects wisely. If a university doesn't require something but you want to do it, then take it for sure. But then you have to take into account how easily you can score well in that subject. So like for econ and BM, it's easier to score in as compared to like bio or chemistry. So you have to be really smart with your subject choices.
Exactly. So thank you so much, Hafsa, for being my first ever interviewee.
Of course.
I'm so glad you're here with me today, because a lot of people actually ask for this, because again, there's so many people, and like even in our country, it's a big culture to become a doctor.
Yes.
And you need the
doctor, engineer, or lawyer.
Exactly. So yeah. Other than that, I'm joking for legal reasons. But thank you so much. And I do think a lot of the MYPs, especially, who did ask for this,
like people going into DP.
Exactly. They're gonna find this so useful. So
thank
you so much, Hafsa.
Of course.